My favorite show growing up was Codename Kids Next Door. I was obsessed with it. Obsession really is the right word. And nobody else liked this show as much as I did. No one around me, at least. And nobody around me really liked it at all. Part of that was my fault. And because I was never shutting up about this was all I talked about. And think Sheen from Jimmy Neutron with his obsession with Ultralord. That's what I was like. And I forced way too many people to watch it with me when they came over to my house. So this was a very misguided attempt to share it and try to get them to see why I thought the way I did. It did not work. But even now as an adult, I'll see criticisms of the show and I think, no, that is so missing the point. No, let me talk to you about this. But I realize on the internet, that is a can of worms I do not want to open. I'm glad I did not have Tumblr at age 10, or good lord, I'd have been in flame wars all the time. So, I do want to talk about my obsession with this show, why it struck such a chord, and why I still really like it. And the biggest thing that I think is a superficial criticism of the show overall is people tend to say, oh, it just teaches kids to hate adults, and that was never taken that seriously in the show. I can understand that criticism is valid, particularly for the first season, because in that first season, they are rude to characters who just want to help them out. Operation Teeth is a big one, where the dentist wants to give him a free checkup. So it's valid criticism, but I don't think it is for the show as a whole. I mean, the creator, Mr. Warburton, still says that people didn't like that idea. Oh, kids versus adults. Oh, they're just teaching them to hate them. So was not that. And so it does bother me when I hear it, but I realize, okay, you're never gonna convince people if they really don't want to be convinced. But this distinction is made later on in the show. Operation Matador is a big one because they have number 4 likes to do bully fights. They hop the adults on coffee and challenge them to fight bullfighting style. But the kids next door condemn that because the bully fights go against innocent adults, whereas the K&D really only go against the evil ones. They have come up with some really creative villains. I thought they have very funny villains, like the Sticky Beard who's stealing all their candy, or Mr. Boss who's trying to send all the kids to Pluto so that the parents will have no one to come home to and therefore work for him more. It's hilarious. Oh, or the achievement, or the overly pushy parents that Chad has in Operation Chad. What a great satire of obsessive resume builder parents. God, that is so funny. And yes, I rewatched it recently. Don't battle me on Codename Kids Next Door. I will cite every episode in this review, I swear to God. Okay. Going to the obsession. So, this was my squad goals before squad goals was a thing. What I liked so much is how the friendship of the main characters 100% of the time felt genuine. They liked each other. Yeah, maybe they'd get annoyed with each other once in a while, but they felt close and they were a really tight-knit group, but at the same time they were individuals. You could have number 5 go on a mission alone. You could have number 2 go on a mission alone. You could have numbers 2 and 4 go on a mission together. You could have numbers 1 and 2 go on a mission together. Numbers 3 and 5, I don't think they ever did, but you could. They worked very well as individuals and as a unit, and they all had their distinctive roles. They were all characters first, and they were kids first. They were both an individual unit, and they were a group, and a really close group at that never felt like it was a competitive kind of friendship. And I really, really liked that. They all had such unique interests, and maybe they wouldn't always understand each other's interests, because number 2 was a big nerd, and he liked Yipper cards, and number 5 really wasn't into that, and number 5 had her girly magazines that the guys didn't really get, but they would still go out of their way to help each other out, even if they didn't understand each other's interests, and I really, really like that. That's so nice. It's nice to see that. I also like the global element of it. yeah, they do portray other cultures in a semi-stereotypical way, but it never felt condescending. And at least for, especially with the main five, they were all of different nationalities, and that was very much part of their character bios, but it wasn't, that didn't define them. I'm a multinational citizen myself, so that was really cool to see. I was always fascinated by that. It's like, oh, well, cool. Number 2, is American, but he's not just an American stereotype. Number 3 is Japanese, and that's influenced because she likes cutesy things, and you see her the closeness with her family. You see that they have a very set way of doing things, but that wasn't just who she was. You could talk about who she was as a person first with all of them. I thought that was cool to see, and I was around a lot of people who were European American or Asian American growing up, and people who were very part of those cultures, but that didn't define them. It was so cool to see. I liked that a lot. I still think that's a good way. I thought it was a good kind of diverse, because you could still list a million things about who these characters were as people, and you could add on to it, and you could see their different journeys. You could see there was a lot, like, there was enough personality to cover a wide spectrum. If you were into aviation, if you were really into detective stories, you could get into something that number 2 was doing. If you like the cute, fun, fluffy stuff, you could be interested in what number 3 was doing. I thought there was a lot of variety there, which is a lot of fun to see. And it makes the characters so interesting. Plus, they'd be all over the world, which I like that. They could go to the moon in a few minutes. I like cartoons that can do that. The imagination is another thing I really, really like. For starters, the little rebel in me really liked the concept. I was instantly in love with that concept. The idea of kids fighting adults, because it's fun. I liked all the different technology they had. I liked how it was all made of junk. I liked their villains. They were such creative villains. Especially the Delightful Children are probably my favorites. I think because they're so unique, that hive mind. And I guess that also represents a mindless conformity. I'm gonna really overanalyze this, but god damn it, that's what I like doing. It's fun. But they felt like the kids next door were rebelling against this mindless conformity that the Delightful Children were. And they fought for their independence and their rights. Hey, a lot of people got that from Harry Potter. I got it from Kids Next Door. I mean, fighting for your freedom is something we like, and it's all in the details that can draw us in. So that was a lot of fun. I really liked, and that was actually how I learned a lot about classic movies, because there were a ton of episodes that were very clear spoofs of movies. They had Star Wars, they had King Kong. Most of number 5's candy hunting journeys were Indiana Jones based. Swear to God, most of Mr. Warburton's work, I feel like there's an obligation to have at least one Raiders of the Lost Ark reference in everything, because it's in the first episode of Muppet Babies too. So, that's funny. It's a great show. But I think it had the right combination of imagination, action, and heart. Even when you saw the kids' parents, because they never fought their parents. A lot of times they would save their families. If anything, siblings were usually villains, but not 100% of the time. Number 5 in Kree, I'm thinking especially. Or number 3 and her sister Mushi. But number 5 and Kree, at least, they had a very loving relationship. They were just at different points in life. Which, yeah, I fought with my sister all the time, so then you had these different relationships that you could explore, and they had all these very fun, very specific characters, and I think that you can do more with it. I think I've talked about how I'd reboot it. You absolutely could have maybe a movie or a small series around them a little bit older, slightly more mature, because I really do think that the process of decommissioning is so unfair. But on the other hand, yeah, you can't stay a kid forever. So you could really deal with stuff like that. I'd love to see that. Yeah, maybe if I get enough resources and insane people willing to do this with me, I'll make a fan film. I've talked about that before. Anyways, it's one of the shows that really stuck with me. I liked it had the right combination of imagination and heart. I liked, even when their family members were antagonistic, they always still loved each other, which is nice. I thought that's a good message of, hey, you may get annoyed with people you love. You may not like everything you're not gonna like everything that they do, but you're still there for each other, and that's really nice. Because a lot of sitcoms in a lot of sitcoms, characters tend to insult each other for no reason, and the chemistry's not always there to back it up, that they're just playing. Here, you see them stand up for each other constantly, and they're there for each other. They're squad goals before squad goals. I don't even like that phrase, because they had such a great friendship. It was nice to see, and they didn't have to shove it in your face. They didn't have to be like, oh, we're best friends forever. They could just be. They didn't have to talk about it, they just did it. And that's a really nice thing to see. So, I'm curious to know what other people take away, because most people really liked when people get the big epic shows with friendship and family and fighting against an oppressive system. Most people gravitate towards either Star Wars or Avatar: The Last Airbender or Lord of the Rings. I think it was the specific idea behind Kids Next Door, that it was big to a kid, but it was still, I think that's what it was, at least because I was very young. I was the right age when it came out. It was that. Now I'm rambling. But it is similar to these big epic stories, but for whatever reason, that's the one that really stuck with me. It's because of the details. So, journal post-esque ending. If you're creating something and it's similar to something else, still make it anyway, because the details and the unique world you build can still make it a different thing. So, kids taking their own power and going against the silly things, that's condescending, or fighting for their independence in a much more small victories with great people with big imaginations who can do a lot of different things. You got a lot of ground covered. So there's that. Still make your stuff. Even if you feel like, oh, it's too similar to this, finish it. Because you really never know.